I'm going to be making Mole Costeño from My Mexico by Diana Kennedy. I've cooked from several of her books before, but never My Mexico. This is a newer book that I've picked up. I've been collecting her books because she doesn't repeat recipes, and there's tons of recipes in all of these books. For those who don't know, Diana Kennedy spent 50 years living in Mexico as a British woman, but collecting recipes from local restaurants and local cooks. And she does a really good job of just putting out recipes from all sorts of different regions. Mole is one of those dishes. It's one of my favorite dishes in general, but it's one of those dishes where there's a million different variations of it. The 7 moles of Oaxaca are kind of like the famous ones, but there's actually a lot of different kinds. So we're going to go ahead and hop in here by making a broth and by poaching our chicken in this broth as we cook it. So we're just going to get a couple of big pieces of chicken quarters here. And we're going to put in half of a large white onion that I've chopped up, as well as 3 cloves of garlic. And you can see I've got it in a slow cooker here, because you could do this on the stove in like a Dutch oven or just a heavy pot. But the slow cooker, I tend to find, extracts more flavor and lets you cook for a longer time. You get with more tender meat. And you don't have to pay attention to it because it's a slow cooker, so it does it all on its own. We're going to put a little kosher salt in there as well. And now we're just going to put enough liquid in here to cover this chicken. And then we're just going to let it cook. And then we'll use this broth at several points when we're making this mole. And we'll use the chicken in the final plating later as well. We're going to dry cook a bunch of the ingredients before we put them into our mole sauce. So we're going to start with about 12 cloves of peeled garlic. Go ahead and put those in, and we're just going to brown them a little bit on each side and then set them aside. Now, with none of these ingredients do you want to actually burn. You just want to get a little bit, a slight browning there, and when it starts to really smell and become aromatic and you can really smell those vapors coming off of it, we can go ahead and set it aside. So we're going to go ahead and at this point set this garlic in its container. The next thing we're going to do here is we're going to toast 3 classic culinary Mexican peppers. This is an ancho pepper, which is a dried poblano pepper. And then we've got guajillos, and these give a lot of Mexican sauces the red coloration that you're used to. And this is a costeño pepper. This is not as nearly as commonly used as guajillo or ancho, but for this recipe, that's where Mole Costeño comes from. There's going to be a lot of these, almost 30 of these in there, and these have a spicy but also a very fruity and complex flavor to them, and that's really going to give this mole its distinctive flavor. So, but all we're doing here is we're just putting one at a time, just put a pepper in the pan, literally for just a couple of seconds on each side, because they don't take much to get going here, and then move on to the next pepper. After you're done with the peppers, go ahead and just rinse them twice under cold water, and then they'll be ready to use when we're making the sauce. And up next in the dry pan, we're going to put 10 whole almonds, and again, we just want to cook those until they get a little fragrant, and then we'll put them back in their container. Almonds are done, and now we're going to do 1/3 cup of raisins. And then we're almost done with the dry toasting. This is the broth from the chicken that we cooked, and we're going to use this at several points throughout this recipe. So we're going to begin making the actual thick mole sauce by putting 1/2 cup of this broth in the blender. We will also be returning to the blender multiple times. We're going to put all of the ground garlic in there as well. And then this is a tablespoon of Mexican oregano, about 1 inch worth of broken off cinnamon stick, 10 peppercorns, and 10 cloves. And this is just the opening phase here, and we're going to go ahead and blend this into a smooth paste. Now we're going to put another 2/3 cup of our broth in with the spices, and we're just going to add our cooked peppers bit by bit. We're only adding the costeño and the ancho peppers at this time. We're not putting the guajillos in yet. They're going to go in later. So just put a handful at a time and then blend it all up. I've melted 3 tablespoons of lard in a heavy bottom pot, and now we're going to put our seasoning paste here of peppers and spices and all that good stuff. And we're going to get all this out And we're just gonna let this start cooking on a low simmer over medium-low heat. Back at the blender, we're gonna put another half a cup of our broth in. And then we're gonna put in the guajillos. And the reason that we're doing them separately is that the guajillos are not gonna go directly in. They're gonna get pushed through a sieve before they go into the pot. So once again, we're gonna go ahead and blend this up until we get a smooth paste. Back at the stove here, I've set up a fine mesh strainer, and we're just gonna get our guajillo paste out of there and into that. And just to illustrate for you here, I'm gonna get the rest of that out here in a minute. But for now, you just wanna rock it back and forth to get as much moisture as you can out of this mixture, and leaving all the solid bits behind, and eventually it'll start to drip into the paste that's already been cooking. And once this will turn into a very dry paste, and maybe I'll show you what that looks like when I pull it away. But you just want to keep working this through the sieve over and over again. In the meantime, you can see back here, we've also got a pot of tomatoes. Go ahead and bring that to a boil. You want to get these to boil until the tomatoes are soft, because we're going to use those in just a bit, so you might as well start that now. So this is the kind of dry paste you want left behind. This is going to go in the trash. You can also see sort of the silky smooth, thick sauce that comes out of this. So I'm going to get this all mixed up, and it's going to continue to slow simmer, and we're going to move on to the next step. I've gone ahead and heated up another tablespoon of lard, and now we're going to put in a chopped up plantain. And we want these to fry in this oil until they get soft. We're also going to go ahead and add our ground almonds from earlier, as well as our raisins. They want to come out. And we're going to just let this mixture coat in the oil and fry and get those plantains nice and soft. Now we're back at the blender. We're going to put another half a cup of our broth in. And now we're going to add the fruits and nuts that we cooked from the stove. And once again, we're just going to blend this until smooth, and then we're going to add it to our mole pot. All right, here we go. We're going to go ahead and add our nice, beautiful fruit and nut mixture here to the rest of the mole and mix all that in. And we're getting close to the finish line here now. Last time at the blender, I went ahead and put the boiled tomatoes in here, and we're just going to blend that until it's smooth, and also add that. That's going to add a lot of moisture and liquid to this to loosen up the mole a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and I will show you guys once we put it all together. Back at the main mole pot, we're going to go ahead and put in our pureed tomatoes and get that mixed in. Now, we're going to let this cook for about 30 minutes. And at this point, you kind of can do what you would like to do with the remainder of the broth. It kind of just depends on how thick you want your mole to be. I tend to like a thicker mole, but just let this cook for about 30 minutes and then add broth as you see fit, especially because we're going to get some evaporation here. I just want to show you the consistency you want to go for your moles. It should look like a dark velvety chocolate. There should not be any big pieces in there. And there are moles that do have chocolate in them. In fact, a lot of the common restaurant ones do, but this one does not. Like I said, there are many different kinds, but it should be thick enough that it leaves sort of like waves when you go through it. It still should be a liquid, but it should just be a very thick liquid. I went ahead and poured some mole over a chicken quarter that we made when we did the slow cooker chicken way back at the beginning of this recipe, and added a side of cooked white rice with a little bit of cilantro, and then the finishing touch is just going to be sprinkling some sesame seeds over the top of this dish, just to make it pop a little bit and have it look a little pretty. And there we go. We're all done. I really encourage you to explore more Mexican cuisine, different types of moles, different types of enchiladas. There's a lot of variation out there, and it's a lot different than what you get in a lot of restaurants. So if you enjoy my videos, I have a ton more Mexican videos, and if you enjoy my content in general, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you at the next one.